Well, hello. This is Angela Lee, and I have with me the marvelous, the fabulous Tiffany West. She is an emotional care coach, and I'm going to let her tell us what that means and how she became one.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Hi, Angela. Happy to be here talking to you as always.
Yeah, it's always nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, yes, like Angela said, I am an emotional care coach. My journey started in 2016 when I got certified to be a health coach. And I really was having my own downfall of chronic health issues, chronic pain. Went through over 10 years of going in and out of doctors and specialists being told nothing was wrong. Even as far as being told it was all in my head, which infuriated me to the point that I was forced to look inside for what my body needed. And that was what changed my life. I had no idea that anger with our what medical system was going to lead me to my purpose and my passion, but I wouldn't trade it. But you would have asked me that back then, and I would have given any amount of money to get rid of all of my symptoms and all of my mystery issues I had going on that were invisible. So what led me to emotional coaching is when I was health coaching, I would notice I would get better in my health and my clients would also, and then we would kind of fall back into old patterns. And no matter how bad we wanted something, we just couldn't keep the mindset, or we couldn't keep the right affirmations, right? We tried all of that stuff and it didn't work. And that led me to do some research on how emotional wounding and unprocessed emotional trauma shows up in our mental and physical health. And that is what landed me here today. That was where I struck gold, understanding how invisible emotional wounds and trauma live in our body, and it creates physical and mental health issues. And that's what
Thank
I,
you for saying that. Because
yes,
as you know, that's like my whole platform of why I write my books. It's, to give children an outlet of positive emotional expression so
absolutely.
that they don't have to hold on to that emotional wounding. And it's not that anyone makes a choice to hold on to emotional wounding, but the minute that you try to avoid an emotion, it's an unconscious decision to hold on to it.
Yeah, it's a unconscious decision and an effort from our bodies and our brain to protect us. This emotion is
Absolutely.
so overwhelming. I don't have the resources to process it. I don't have anybody modeling what it feels like to find safety in this traumatic, overwhelming
Right.
experience, right?
This horrible feeling.
This horrible feeling. So let me get out of it and disconnect from my body so that I can survive. And so that being said, it's nobody's fault. I have no idea my emotions were connected to my physical health and my mental health symptoms like anxiety and depression I had had over the years. I had no clue. And so,
Mhm.
it was an awakening for me to have my body wake me up to the call, is what I like to call it, because as uncomfortable as it was through that pain and discomfort that I found my truth, and I found what was hiding at the bottom, and a lot of treasure when we can feel our emotions and care for our emotions and take care of our well-being. There's so much divine wisdom that lives in there. And many people think this is woo woo, but I do not. And part of me does. I love woo woo and I love the science, but I mean, it hasn't lied for me and it hasn't lied for my clients, where coming in and really taking care of your emotional needs and processing that energy that's stuck in your body, it will change your life.
It will. And it's as you were speaking, I was thinking about my awakening, which was a wildfire. And we all come at our awakening from different things. With you, it was health, and other people, it might be a difficult marriage. Whatever it is, it's there to wake you up, to understand that your emotions, these things that happened to you in childhood that you were forced or you decided to quash, those emotions are still with you and they're affecting you every day, whether it's your health, your reactivity, or your behaviors. And what I've learned is that emotions that are repressed either go inward and attack, or they go outward and attack.
They're going to go
Yes.
somewhere. They're going to go somewhere, and you can't outrun them. And what I've
No.
heard is a debatable question, like for me, I had very, very covert emotional trauma wounds living in my body. And I had no idea I had had a childhood that I could associate with trauma. Our childhood was pretty healthy from the outside looking in. And, I did not have any like outward physical, sexual abuse, things like that of the big T
Mhm.
traumas, thank God. And my heart goes out to people who have experienced that, because that's a huge wounding that deserves healing as well. And
Yeah.
what I found is that because there were no visible scars with the covert trauma I had experienced, I didn't know I was carrying them. And I think they became more toxic over the time because I didn't recognize there was something to heal. I didn't know. Whereas, overt trauma, we know there's a scar, we know there's a wound, and we know where to go and what
Yeah.
to treat. We may not always do it in the most effective ways, which the work that I do helps with that as well. However, I really focus in on helping people with those invisible wounds, and the symptoms come out, like Angela said, in our
And
health,
it's
our
yeah.
circumstances, and our relationships, our finances, all of that,
All every aspect of our lives,
all
right?
of it.
But one of the points that I want to make is that you make a great point in the covert trauma that, it wasn't big T trauma, but often little kids who experience big T trauma, like sexual abuse, end up their whole body just represses that memory, that emotion, every aspect of it. It's not a conscious choice, but that there are kids who have been abused that lost their whole childhood. They have no memory of their whole childhood because their body and their mind, in order to keep that child safe in those circumstances, took away that memory. And so there can be big T trauma that
Hidden.
is very hidden and covert. Yeah.
Buried. Yeah,
In
that's a
fact,
really good point, because there are
yeah.
scars, right, that you can see or remember. And my point to bringing that up was I've had this debate, if you will, with a lot of people that, well, if I don't remember what happened to me in childhood, how could it possibly be affecting me?
Mhm.
Right. And a lot of people not understanding that they are holding on to trauma because they've gone so far up in living in their heads and creating a life around it, that
Mhm.
it would almost probably be too scary to even open up that door again, right? Or even to even
And
go
I had
exploring.
yeah, I have one story of me and one story of a friend that really punctuates that. And so it's like with me, I was abused and I didn't know that. I didn't I had no idea.
Wow.
I ended up my father, he was an injured man and he used alcohol to numb his feelings and ended up being very abusive during his alcohol use. My young self made the connection between his rage and who I'm supposed to be.
Mm. Wow.
So his rage was so huge to a small child, like slash and burn kind of rage. I decided that rage was something no one should experience.
It's not safe,
It's not safe. No one should have to experience that. So I began judging people who became angry.
including
This was
yourself.
not a conscious thing. I wasn't choosing that, but I made this decision about me as a child based on my experiences, and that affected the rest of my life.
Big time.
So
Wow.
that's
I'm
just
really
one quick
sorry.
story.
Yeah, I'm really sorry you went through that with your dad, because no child should have to endure that. And
Yeah.
you're such a testament to being here to tell the story, vibrant and bright. And, the way you say it with such grace now, and you don't even speak terrible of him. Like, I don't even hear that in your voice or in your energy. I'm sure that's been a really long road of healing and repair and waking up and
Yeah.
acknowledging all of that going on inside.
Yeah, it's been a long road, and it's really about understanding that hurt people hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, I was an injured child, but guess what? So was my father.
Yep.
But he made an unconscious decision to numb those feelings, and I ended up making a conscious decision to heal those wounds, and
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference.
Yeah. And healed people heal people.
Yeah.
That we get to experience on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Tiffany, what's up in your space? Do you have any events or anything coming up?
I am brewing a little bit. I don't have anything coming up on the horizon. It'll probably be early next year, but I am working on, I work with my clients one-on-one, and I'm growing and want to teach what I'm teaching to more people. So I'm working on a group program that I
Nice.
can start bringing and funneling in more women at one time that can get this beautiful space of healing and safety and community. And I'm going to be pulling some workshops from that and doing some free events. I don't know when exactly because I'm just now brewing on the program, but I have a feeling it'll be before the end of the year, or early next year, that I'll be ready to start inviting more people to workshops and having some fun with learning about what those invisible wounds you may be carrying around and how they're showing up in your symptoms.
Yeah, and I would say to anyone listening that if you are reactive to circumstances in your life, chances are there is some emotional wounding from your childhood that is feeding into that reaction. So
Absolutely.
even if you think you don't have emotional wounds, you might.
Well, here's the thing. The body never lies, right?
Ah! Yeah,
Right there. Like, our
right
body holds
there.
our wisdom, and we do not give our bodies enough credit because our culture teaches us not to connect with our body, not to listen to our body, not to
Mm,
resource our body for information. We're taught to learn it up here, which is beautiful. That's one part. But
mhm.
to resource the wisdom from our body and our emotions and our inner guidance is how we're meant to be navigating this life. That is why so many people lose it, quote unquote, because the brain cannot handle everything we're giving it. And
Mhm.
so, listening to our bodies and listening to what Angela says, what are your symptoms of emotional wounding? Waking up to understanding when you don't feel quite right, when you just don't feel good inside of yourself, or you're just not as happy as you want to be, or whatever that discord or dis-ease may be for you. It's a really good opportunity to start questioning and getting curious about what else could be going on that you may not be aware of.
So beautifully said.
Mhm.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so yeah, I focus on kids, and my whole role is to try and get them to face all of their emotions so that they don't get buried and repressed and become disease. But also it helps to not be so triggered in your environment when you know how you're feeling. So
Absolutely. And the fact that you're focusing on kids, that is so beautiful because that is where it starts. That's where all of this wounding
that's where the
happens.
wounding begins.
And it's
Yeah.
unconscious. We're not here to blame and bash parents. Parents are showing up, doing the best they can with what they have.
Mhm.
I was that unconscious parent with my oldest son up until he turned
Me
about
too.
11 or 12. And I realized, oh shit, this is not working. It's actually disconnecting us, and I'm becoming a person I don't like, and he's clearly not happy. And this isn't what I want. This isn't what I want for myself or my relationship with my child. So it does make a difference when you've got a conscious parent who is
Yeah.
aware of their own self-regulation and learning what it is that triggers them and what they need and how to meet those needs and how to heal those emotional wounds so that they can hold that space and modeling for their children. I think that's the biggest gift we can give to our kids. We're not here to control them. We're here to hold space and connect
Thank you.
with them. We are not just but when it kills me when I hear parents say, that's my child, I do what I want. They're not our possessions. Contrary to
Or
all. adult egos, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. The mini me, there'll
The
be
juniors.
Instagram posts of parents with their little kid dressed up just like them and doing like doing the father's doing push-ups and the kids doing push-ups. And this is the mini me.
Mhm.
But the whole idea of mini me is that the parent is living their life, the
Through.
life they wanted through their child. That is their child's life. And they need to just like pull back on that whole mini me thing and say, if you want to do push ups, great, do them.
But if
But if
not,
you want to go chase butterflies, you do that instead.
oh, yeah, I love that. And the whole I know what's best for you, right?
Oh,
We mean that so well, don't we? Yeah.
right. That was so prevalent in the whole parenting, well, I'm the parent, so I know what's best.
I know what's best for you. We could never possibly know what's best for anybody else but
Mhm.
ourselves. And sometimes
But
we don't even
ourselves.
know that, right? That's a learning process. And it's so easy to innocently do that with our children because we mean well and we want to protect them and we want them to have what's best for them. However, they know what's best for them. Their souls know what's best for them. And our job is to hold space and help them clear that emotional clutter and baggage and wounding so that they can feel and process their emotions and get in touch with that creative divine energy that knows what's best for them, and then help them connect with that and they live their lives the way they're meant to. It's probably not going to look like ours, and it's not supposed to.
No, it's not. And the whole expectation thing is that's a big thing in so many different cultures. I grew up and be a writer, so I expect my child to be a writer. Or
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
a lawyer, I expect my child to be a lawyer. We've been lawyers in this family for 32 generations, so you got to be a lawyer.
You got to
It's
follow
like,
suit.
wait a minute. I tell this story in my parenting class about Steve Jobs and his parents. Can you imagine what this world might be like if Steve Jobs' parents went to him in the garage and said, "Boy, you got to clean this garage up and I don't know why you're spending so much time doing this shit because you are smart
You're
and
off
you
track.
could be a lawyer."
You're off track. Or the whole school thing, right?
Well, yeah, and it's really about understanding that our kids are bringing in energies into this world, things we may not understand. Who would have thought of an iPhone
Back
20,
then.
30 years ago,
Yeah.
whatever, 40 years ago? Wasn't It wasn't a thing, and it wasn't even a conceivable thing. But Steve Jobs, whether or not his parents were behind him, he was able to make that jump because he followed the path of his heart, of his soul, and what he was supposed to do.
Oh, I love how you tie that in, because isn't that what the goal is
Yeah,
for all of us
isn't it?
humans? Like, we've got all these different unique paths. We're all different on purpose
Mhm.
with the same goal to really come home to ourselves and live from our heart and live out
Mm.
our passion and live, the life that we were designed to live with purpose here. And we are not taught that that's okay. We are
Right. Well,
complete.
parents, they're coming from their heart space. They want their child to succeed, but they believe that their path for their child is the one that will bring success, when in reality, their child's path is the one that can bring success.
And success looks different to all people.
Yeah, what is success?
Yeah, what is that? And that's, I feel like, our divine job of our parents, to help hold space for our kids to define what success looks like for them, what it
For
feels
them.
like to them.
Mm,
It may not have anything to do with our version of that, and that's okay. And the more we can let our kids be their own souls and be equal, they're not just because they're littler in
oh,
physical,
no.
right? They got bigger souls than we do,
They
and they're
can
more
teach us. Yeah.
fun. I didn't know when I became a parent, I had to learn lessons. I thought I was going to be teaching them. And boy, was I mistaken. Yeah, I had to
Yeah.
learn some of the hardest lessons, but the best divine lessons just in watching my little one. Now I
Mm,
have a younger son, and just my frame of mind and where I'm at in my journey is so different. And I'm able to be completely present and allow myself to be that parent that's not in survival mode, doing what I can to make ends meet, not being fully present, not being fully open and conscious. It makes such a big difference in how our kids feel safe to show up in the world when
yeah.
we allow them to be who they are without judgment. And that's hard. I'm not going to sit up here and say as a parent that that's an easy transition. So it
It's
took time.
yeah. I mean, we look at how our parents parented us, and we have to, as parents in this modern day, make a break and say they were doing their best, but
Yep.
we know better now. And
Yeah.
so we're going to follow this other path that brings the best outcomes for my kids.
And listen to your own body. Does it feel good when you're yelling and screaming at your kids?
Mm,
Does it feel good
no,
to be so annoyed that you're snapping at them and feeling then guilty, but then not sure how to repair and apologize because of your own thoughts and beliefs and feelings and uncontrollable responses because of your trauma? Those things do not feel good. I don't believe any parent wants to be in that
no.
position. And, we're not blaming parents here either. It's just a matter of like waking up and understanding if your kids feel really triggering, it's an opportunity not to beat yourself up or your
But to
kids,
question
but to question and get curious.
what
What is,
what is it? What is this energy that keeps popping up when my kid does this? And is it related to something that happened in my past and how I was treated?
absolutely, yeah. And that's the perfect way to start waking up is when you're triggered by your kids, and you'll find patterns. When you tell your kids, why do I have to tell you this a million times? When you find yourself repeating yourself, that pattern is trying to get your attention. It's not trying to tap your nerves, even though it does. And I get that. But when your nerves are tapped, that's a beautiful opportunity to wake up and get curious and be aware of what could be done differently and how you can show up differently, because when you change, they do. And it takes so much less effort. And the more regulated you feel inside, the more regulated your kids are, and the less attached you are to them feeling good so you can feel good. And that was a big
Right.
one for me.
It all starts inside,
Yeah.
right?
My kid, when my oldest would be unhappy or upset, boy, that was the end. That was a no-no for me because I didn't realize unconsciously it was bringing up my same belief about yours with rage. I had that about being down and sad and depressed because my dad was like that. And
Right.
my mom always said that's a problem. He needs to be happy. He needs to be pepped up. And he was very
Mm.
withdrawn and shut down. And so I
That
just,
always helps,
yeah,
right?
that really helps.
Right.
So I just totally assumed that when somebody was down or sad and not happy, there was a problem and I had to fix it. And
Mm.
um, none of this stuff is a problem. All of these triggers are here to serve us if we allow them to, and if we get the
Beautiful.
right support and knowledge and guidance around how to do it different, because a lot of these modalities around emotional health are not taught, which is why I'm so passionate about what I do.
You and me both.
Yeah, like Angela's,
It's like we're holding our flags up for emotional resilience. Yeah.
yes, big time. And when we can start with the little ones, the world is going to be such a better place. That's what's happening out here. It's a big
Mhm.
projection of unresolved trauma,
Yeah.
emotional trauma. That's when you looked on the news. If you watch that, I've stopped, but if you look on the news or look on social media or just look at all of the chaos and all of the craziness and horrible things that are happening in the world, it's because, like Angela said, hurting people hurt people. And it doesn't go away just because you think yourself out of it. You can't think yourself out of trauma. You can't think
No.
yourself into emotional healing. It
You
has
can't
to,
even talk yourself out of it.
not at
You know,
all.
that's I believe that the energy needs to move. And if the energy doesn't move, you can think your way into moving energy. You can speak words that help move energy.
Facilitate.
But unless you're allowing that emotional energy to flow, it's going to get stuck and it will affect you whether you know it or not.
And whether you believe it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just like gravity. You don't have to believe in it for
It's there, right?
it's happening and it to be true. And when you can allow those emotions to flow, you feeling them. And a lot of people have a hard time with that, and that can be a very traumatic experience to
Well,
feel.
especially people who were brought up to not share their emotions. You know,
Absolutely.
I spent some time in England and it's keep calm, carry on, or stiff upper lip, or we're not supposed to show
Yeah,
our emotions to the world. And
you
so
just get
kids are
over it.
brought up with this structure. And then when you're like, hey, remember a time when you felt happy and can you feel that feeling? And they're like, how do I feel?
I got to think. I got to think my way into a happy time. It's when I made that achievement, or when I made somebody proud, or when I was doing something for somebody else. That's how we would
Mm,
attach. That's how I would attach. The closest attachment I had to my emotions was through my mind. And I'll take
yeah.
that. But I'm also really thankful now I have a direct, path to my emotional health, which helps my mind and the stories and the thoughts
Yeah.
that I produce. It makes such a big deal. When my little one says he feels sad or angry, I'm really learning how to ask him, instead of why are you sad? Let's not analyze
Mhm.
the emotion. Where do you feel it?
Ah,
Where
that's
do you
so
feel sad
beautiful.
in your body? Does your tummy feel weird, or is your heart beating? Like,
Right. Is it a color? Is it
let's talk about what you're feeling and how you're feeling, and get deeper in. And that is my way of helping him learn to connect with his body versus disconnect, and
Mhm.
try to analyze in the head. And that has been a game changer. It's the cutest thing I've ever seen. He tells
It
me now.
is a game changer.
It's
Yeah.
really, really awesome when he says, hey, I'm sad, and I feel it right here. And I tell him, well, just touch your body right here and say, hi, sadness. And now
Mm.
he learns that it's okay to be sad. He can be comforted when he's sad, and there's safety around feeling this uncomfortable emotion.
That's it in a nutshell. Giving yourself permission to feel that feeling. It's safe to feel that feeling. And I love that you use that. You know, I teach focused attention, which is the same thing. Basically, feel, name, and allow. And you're doing that process in your own way. And it's beautiful to teach a child that because your child is going to grow up knowing that he doesn't have to numb from a feeling.
Or he doesn't have to try to figure it out either.
Exactly.
He gets just to be with it. And then
He
when
can
he's with it,
experience it.
it flows right through him, and it's over in a few seconds. Like, he doesn't have to spend the whole day being sad, resisting the sadness, trying to push it away. Like, it takes so much
It's
less
so,
energy.
yeah, it astounds me how much time and effort and energy people put into avoiding a feeling if they knew that that feeling biochemically lasts 90
90
seconds.
seconds, that's it. People spend decades running from and avoiding
Yeah,
and numbing.
something that if they faced and felt safe in facing, they could feel it and it'd be gone. Boom.
Absolutely. And you just named it. Felt safe. That is the key here,
Mhm.
everybody, because without the safety, you have to be really careful to open up trauma and open up emotional wounding. You don't want to go opening up that box, because it is like surgery. You're having like soul surgery, energetic surgery on healing and creating safety. And if you open that up without having the right tools and the right support through healing those emotional wounds, it can create so much more damage. So there is a way and an art to feeling emotions.
Mhm.
And there's a safe way that it has to be done for it to be effective. And I have to put that caveat out there, because it can get really dangerous to just go around feeling, and it's nothing you've been taught, and you've been repressing a lot of feelings. You don't want to let
There
that,
is,
like letting
yeah,
the top off of a pressure cooker too quickly. It's more damaging. You could get burned by the steam, right? And so you've got to be very, very careful and mindful of getting the right support if you're wanting to go on an emotional healing journey. That is not something I would advise doing alone in the beginning, especially if you've experienced a lot of trauma.
And thank you for that, because it is true that, really trauma is like an onion, and and allowing the feelings one time is going to peel one layer of the onion, and you're going to
And
have to
more is
do it
going to
again
come
and
up.
again. And a lot of time it's really helpful to have an experienced person supporting you through that. So thank you
You're
so
welcome.
much, Tiffany.
You're welcome. And one thing I want to leave people with, I would love to just, if you're seeking out help and you're seeking out, support through tough emotional storms, and talk therapy is beautiful. Just make sure that your therapist is not having you bring all this stuff up from your past and then sending you home with this open Pandora's box of trauma that you don't know what to do with all of those feelings. That could be very dangerous. So be sure that you're getting the right support, and that if you are opening up old wounds and old stories, that you have the right process to be able to integrate that in a really safe way. That is what I'm seeing a lot with my clients coming from traditional therapy, is that they're not closing that circle. So they're
Yeah, and
about it, and then
and
the passes, and then they're feeling 10 times worse because they don't know what to do in that time with all of the things that are being brought up.
and one of the things I would like to say is that talk therapy is almost a re-traumatization, because every
I didn't
time
want to
you
go there, but thank you.
revisit this in you're speaking it, and
You're
so it's
living it.
almost that it's you gotta move the emotion. It's gotta
Awesome.
flow, or else there is no real healing that can be achieved.
Nothing. And really, trauma is not psychological, it's physiological. It really resides in our body. So talk therapy doesn't really touch trauma other than bringing that light of awareness to it and bringing it back up and having you
Which
relive it,
is important.
which is important. But if there's no life vest there and there's nobody there to help support you through those deep waves that come up of the emotions that you've been suppressing, your body's going to react in a lot of uncomfortable ways because it's not feeling safe enough to do that. And so you want to make sure moving that through you're working with somebody who is trauma informed and who does understand where trauma lives in the body to help you facilitate that incrementally, so that you're not putting too much damage and too much too fast on your system.
And yeah, I mean, we are not just a brain, right? We are a body. And so
Mind and body.
having yeah, it's mind and body, and breath work, EFT tapping, um, somatic movement,
Practices, yeah.
all these things can really support you on your healing journey. Look into them.
Yes, yes. If we are inspiring emotional healing and looking into the support that supports that.
Yeah. Yeah. Tiffany, I thank you so much. I know every time I talk to you, we're able to dive deeper and deeper into this whole idea of how emotions affect the body when you do not let them flow. And, I have often spoken about how emotions reflect outward. And you bring such a deep understanding of the inward attack
Yeah,
from repressed emotions. So thank you. I
you're so
appreciate you.
welcome. Thank you for having me. And here's a little cherry on top for everybody. Doing the emotional work and digging up old wounds is never fun, right? Nobody wants to go
Mhm.
and do that. We want to avoid that pain at all costs. But I will tell you, if you have the courage and the inspiration to work with somebody that can help you through that process, then you are really connected to the magic that lives inside of you, your
Mm,
divine power, your
beautiful.
divine essence. Then you get to really come out and live in this magical life that many people don't get to experience because they don't believe, or they don't know, or they're too afraid to do the work, or don't have the right support. But doing the work is so important, because what lives underneath it is a treasure, and it's inside of you, hidden under your trauma. And so
Right.
it gives me excitement to continue to peel back that onion for myself, because I know that there's a hidden treasure in there, and I find them every time I unravel another layer. And so
Mm.
it doesn't have to be grueling. It could be fun too.
Well, it is difficult, but the value of doing it is beyond measure.
Yeah.
And so, you could be in the middle of the journey and it's just like one hill climb after another. And you're like, when is this going to end? I'm tired of this. I'm so weary. And I've
Yes.
been there. But the,
Knowing.
the, yeah, just knowing that what is on the other side is emotional freedom.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Mm,
And your divine self. Like, that's where
yeah.
you get in touch with who you truly are and what you came here to do. And there's no other power on the planet like that. And so
Mm,
go tap into your power. Do that.
yeah.
Do the inner work and heal. And life will feel so much more worth living, for sure.
Ah, thank you, everyone. We hope we brought you some value here and send you many blessings.